I'm just a girl on the internet. Hi, welcome, I'm Hannah. I wanted to do a get ready with me today and talk about my thoughts on Married at First Sight. I did a video a couple months ago at this point. Yeah, I posted it right around Valentine's Day, where I talked about my feelings on the show. It's still pretty exciting. I was watching last week and I was like, I have some thoughts on this I could share, so I figured maybe someone else cares. I feel like it's kind of a funny thing because like it should be talked about more. It's such like an exciting relationship show, but somehow it's still like, you know, it's not The Bachelor, but I like it because it's more real than The Bachelor. So yeah, that's the plan. I'm gonna use the palette I built in my Spongebob palette dupe video. I'll link the one down below. I actually quite like that one. I took out the Cleona shades. I'm working on a Cleona swatch video right now, but I'm just gonna work around it, maybe try to create something colorful. I also use this in my KVD Good Apple Foundation Bomb video. I just happen to be wearing 3 different looks in that video that I created with this. I've just been having a lot of fun playing with this palette, so just FYI. I'll link that one also. I'm not sure if I'm going to say all the shadows that I'm using while I use them, but I'll write all the names down below. So the last time I talked about Married at First Sight, I was talking a lot about Paige and Chris, and at this point, I guess they're just like officially not a couple anymore, which is good because clearly he wasn't ready for this. He wasn't mature enough for it. I just feel like, how could the experts have not known that he wasn't ready for this? It just seems so obvious in like any clip they had of him, even starting at the beginning, that he was not prepared to be a married man. I think one of them had said, I think Pastor Cal said in that like before the Married at First Sight show that they had, like the little talk show with Jamie Otis, that like they would never do things for ratings, like for drama. And I kind of feel like how could they not? Because also it's working. It's like this season is so exciting. And it sucks because like these are real people's lives. Like I believe that Paige is a real person who really signed up for this looking for someone special and got matched with someone who is just like walking drama. But I guess it's good that that storyline's done. It was just so frustrating because I think Chris is the kind of person that will never realize or accept that he's in the wrong. You know, I think he just feels so justified in not giving it a fair chance because he didn't find her attractive, and the fact that he has this baby on the way now, as if like he didn't do the things a couple weeks before filming that got him into that situation, like as if it just like happened to him out of nowhere for no reason. So the next couple is Clara and Ryan, who seem very happy besides the fact that they haven't slept together yet. And I think some way that the show does sensationalize is with this kind of thing. They keep replaying this clip of Clara complaining to the other girls and expressing her frustrations. And I mean, I can only feel so bad for her because she knows that she signed up for, but it was like sneaky corner camera footage. Like clearly the camera crew wasn't there when she was saying this. And I have watched them play the clip on that Jamie Otis show in front of, I think, both Clara and Ryan, and they were both pretty mature about it. You know, maybe they both kind of understand that it was like a private conversation that they're playing, and she's allowed to be frustrated. It just kind of felt like they did her dirty. But my main problem with this whole storyline is that it feels like they're trying to logic Ryan into being more willing to sleep with her, which just feels very like off to me. I think it does fall into the category of something that people know not to do to a woman, but somehow it's still like being done to men. Like he should be willing to sleep with her in the minds of the experts. Because, you know, I feel like they really push this line of like, well, you're married now, like this isn't a typical situation, like you're not dating, and like I get that it's very immersive, you're spending a lot of time together, but still I don't think it's totally unreasonable for him to not want to sleep with her after knowing her for like a month, even if many other people would. You know, and she's allowed to be frustrated, but he's also allowed to put his foot down and say that he's not comfortable with that. The fact that it seemed like they're trying to convince him to be comfortable just feels a little weird to me. And it kind of brings me to another issue that I've had with the show before, that I feel like they have these experts who aren't all psychologists or psychiatrists kind of posing as them. You know, I believe that Dr. Devinah is a therapist, but I mean, I could be wrong about this. I think Dr. Pepper is not a therapist. She's a sociologist, which I could be wrong. I don't know either. I'm just a girl on the internet, but I think that's different. And then Pastor Cal is just a guy. He's just a minister. And, you know, that could be fine. There could be room for that on the show, but I feel like they act like the credentials of the three of them are interchangeable. Like they're all one of the same. They all have the same expertise, and they definitely don't. And I think it shows that Dr. Viviana does give more kind of like therapy-based advice, and the rest of them seem like they're giving you advice like a buddy. I do think Dr. Pepper has good advice for them, but I often see Pastor Cal and I'm kind of like, I don't know what he's saying to them. So my point here is that a therapist could talk to Ryan. There could be room for that, where they talk about the why of his boundaries, even though they don't really have to, because it's not that weird because it's only been a month, you know, but they could kind of like try to work through them like that. But I feel like instead he's constantly in situations where they're just like, why don't you want to sleep with your wife? As if it's so weird. And that kind of ties into the next couple, because I feel like a similar issue was happening with Virginia. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before that each of the contestants met with one of the experts to discuss their like unresolved issues in the marriage. So I believe it was Virginia that met with Pastor Cal, and she was talking about one of the issues with her and Eric is that he's kind of giving her an ultimatum about having kids, and she's not sure if she wants to. Which, I mean, first of all, they shouldn't have matched them then on just that. If it's absolutely 100% important to him to have kids, and she's on the fence, like that is a big thing that people break up over. If they were a match in every other way other than that, and he said he would not budge on that, they shouldn't have put them together. But Pastor Cal asked her why she's on the fence about that, and she said it was two things. She said she was afraid to give birth, and she was afraid of being a bad mom. And his response, like, completely brushed over the afraid to give birth concern. He was like, oh, everyone's afraid of that. And I feel like that one clip didn't say if she has kind of like a normal level of fear, or if she has like an actual phobia, actually something that like needs to be worked on. And again, maybe there's things behind the scenes that I'm not privy to, but I felt like it was kind of rude to just assume that this concern is like something stupid, something that like, oh, everyone thinks that way, no problem, because even if it's a concern that everyone has, it's still possible that she has an actual problem with it. And if he's kind of like posing as her therapist, you would think that he would take that concern a little bit more seriously. Eric and Virginia are a funny couple because I feel like when I first talked about them, I was kind of like, oh, how cute, they get along so well, so great. But since then, my opinion of Eric has gone like gravely downhill. I think he's so condescending. I feel like he acts like he knows that he's right, and maybe he's like that to everyone, or maybe it's the age difference. But I find that very obnoxious of him. He's always saying like, if you can't deal with this, I'm done. If you don't think this, I'm out. Because he's just like so sure that what he thinks is the right way, and the only option is for her to come to him. He also has this whole backstory about having been married before, and he's always bringing up that like, you know, she's never lived with anyone, but he knows how a marriage works. And I think it's important in any relationship to approach it with new eyes, that even if some things were a certain way in a past marriage or a past relationship, it doesn't mean that those have to be the same rules for them. There was also a conversation with Dr. Viviana with the two of them, maybe it was a couple weeks ago at this point, where they brought up the fact that they have different political backgrounds, and the fact that it came out shows that it's an issue for them. And that's like another strike that I'm like, I can't believe they matched them. I know there are people out there that make it work while they have different political beliefs. I also think it comes down to like why you vote, the things that you're kind of willing to compromise on and the things that you aren't willing to compromise on. But I think as a rule of thumb, and especially if me and completely unqualified person was to match strangers together to be couples, I would feel like your values have to line up. You know, that's why people can have different interests and still make it work together, because at the core, you are the same kind of person. You view the world in the same way. And I just feel like in general, having different affiliations is kind of like a recipe for disaster. You know, maybe that's why also he had said he wanted an independent wife, but then he got one and he seems to struggle with her level of independence. And I wonder if that has to do with some kind of like core traditional values, feeling like the wife should take his opinion as a final opinion, as opposed to like hers also being completely valid, even when he doesn't agree with it. I don't think she's a saint either though. There's been a couple moments with her where I'm kind of like, she seems to be handling this terribly. They had a conversation about where they're going to live after the 8-week experiment. And, you know, I get her stance of wanting to have a place that's theirs, but it sounds like there's going to be some kind of transitional time where they're moving out of the shared space that's given to them on the show. And while they hunt for a new place to live, they either have his property that he owns or her property that she rents, and she agreed that hers isn't good, but it seems like she's like refusing to move into his. And I think it does sound like logically the smartest thing to do in that situation is to not continue paying rent for her apartment and to spend a little bit of time at his while he's selling it and while they're finding a new neutral space. And that did just sound to me like she was just being kind of unreasonable. I actually am going to try out a new foundation concealer kind of product. I put on primer, which I don't always do, but I think that this is going to be kind of thick and it might need the help kind of like gliding on, so I just threw on a little bit of primer. I used this once, but then I forgot that I used it, so I didn't like take notice of how it wore, but I don't really know how I want to use this because I think it's like a foundation and concealer. Usually I do have my concealer a little bit lighter than my foundation. I imagine I'll probably like it better for one than the other, so just a little quick intermission from my thoughts to try out a foundation. It does feel really thick, like off the bat, it feels more like I'm just put a concealer on my whole face. I kind of hate trying new foundations. Because it's like if I'm gonna go through all the effort of putting on my makeup, I don't want to have to like worry that it's just gonna look total trash or I'm gonna like do it the wrong way. Well, that was fun and exciting. I think it looks pretty heavy on my skin. So back to my thoughts. Next we have Haley and Jake. And I keep kind of flip-flopping on them because it's easy to look at a couple and be like, oh, this is their fault, or like it's, you know, because of them that it's failing. But with them, I feel like I keep flip-flopping just because they're both doing things that are wrong and like neither of them are the kind of partner that I would want to be with. I think first of all, it seems like Haley didn't like Jake from the start. She wants to act like she like really gave it a fair chance for a while, but I don't really believe that. I also think that like with her, like he loves the 80s, he loves like dressing silly, and I've kind of like learned that he just thinks it's kind of like fun and funny to dress stupid. And I think that's something that like has to be part of his charm. But she just wants him to like dress better. And I think there's a certain amount of when you spend a lot of time with anyone, you do kind of like morph together in a bit naturally without even meaning to. And I think if she stuck it out with him, then like over time, she would buy him a sweater here, she'd buy him a sweater there, she'd like influence his style choices. But I think that like his weird way of dressing is part of him. You know, he's not someone that's just like wearing whatever because it's there. It's like he's making intentional choices. I feel like it's like if someone were to date me and tell me that they hate that I wear a lot of makeup, you know, and like I do this because it's what I like to do. So someone saying that to me would be them not accepting me. Whereas if they were patient with it, maybe over time I would, you know, wear less makeup around them or something like that, but it would have to come from me to be authentic. And the same thing with like his like obsession with the 80s, like that's part of him. And she doesn't have to get it, but her kind of like trying to stop him from decorating that way and enjoying his kitschy stuff is her taking away something that makes him him. But at the same time, I do see her point about her making more effort than him. It just seems like even in conversation, at least with the specific clips that they've played, that like where they're trying to have a flow, she's trying to like initiate a conversation and he just kind of lets it end. She asks him a question, he answers it, that's the end. And like I've had conversations with people like that too, and it's frustrating. It feels like you're interviewing them because you're not getting anything back. And I don't know if it's just like in these situations he's getting frustrated and that's why. Maybe that's not who he is at all times, but it does seem like he does that enough that he doesn't even realize that he's doing it. There was one conversation with them that sounds like it's been an ongoing conversation, but I don't think they showed anything about it until the most recent episode. But I guess it's pretty standard that on the wedding day, they have the spouses write a note or get a gift or both for their spouse to get before they walk down the aisle. So it came up that Jake had gotten Haley a bracelet. So she says that at first she thought it was a necklace. She was wearing a high neck dress, so that's why she didn't put it on to wear it down the aisle. Which, I mean, I feel like I would have just stuck it under there even though it would be covered up, just because it's like a sweet thing that he did. But, you know, I buy the excuse. I get that. But then the story goes that afterwards, she gave it to her mom to take back to the other state where her mom lives. And then that's where it stayed this whole time. So now I think it's been about 6 weeks now, and I guess he spent a lot of money on it, and he was upset that she never showed any kind of liking to it. And I think that's reasonable. Like, not even about the money of it. You know, I'm assuming he wasn't saying right off the bat, like, $800 bracelet, $800 bracelet. But I think the thing is that he got her a gift and he wanted to see her use it because it was a token of his affection. And she made no effort to get it back from her mom after the honeymoon. And I think that is kind of lame, and I could see myself being offended by something like that also. She was trying to throw back to him and be like, you know, she got him a hat of a sports team that she liked, and why does he never wear the hat? But she was clearly just saying that to try to like throw it back at him. And like, if the hat didn't mean that much to her, it didn't mean that much to her. But either way, he did have the hat in his possession and she didn't even have the bracelet in hers. They were showing these clips of her talking to her mom and being like, yeah, it's so tacky that he is bringing it up, so tacky, it's a gift. But at the end of the day, like, it symbolizes something. I think if I was in that situation, I'd want to wear the piece of jewelry because I'd feel like it's so sweet that, you know, it's something that they picked out. And I feel like in a way it does symbolize that she was never really trying. So I get his perspective and feeling that way. I'm gonna clean this up. So I'm having issues where I tried to clean up that blue fallout and it's just staying blue. So we'll see if this works. Since I have a bone colored shadow in here anyway, I'm just gonna try to like pat some of this over that blue and see if that's pigmented enough to cover it up. I think that's better. So the only couple I haven't talked about is Brianna and Vincent, and they seem pretty good, pretty happy. My only issue or concern with them is that I feel like Vincent can be a little inconsistent. Like, they had that whole fight where he spilled champagne and then she called him Champagne Vinny, which sounds like something that people call him from time to time anyway, but he found it very condescending and he was very upset about it. There was also the time that they took a dance class and he was very upset the whole time because he thought he was bad at it. And I feel like that stuff kind of sucks, like to be with someone that will just be like a sourpuss if they're not already good at it. It kind of like defeats the whole purpose of it. And then I think it's like more embarrassing for him than being bad at something like a specific type of dance is. So that makes me nervous that, you know, to imagine her kind of like walking on eggshells around him. I think dating inconsistent people is very frustrating. I'm going to pop on my eyeliner and mascara. And this is the finished look. My final thoughts, as we're probably like 2 or 3 weeks maybe away from decision day. They always seem to drag the show out so much, which like I'm not complaining about. But I predict, probably not surprisingly for anyone, that Haley and Jake are going to get a divorce. I think the other 3 couples will stay together. I feel like Vincent and Brianna are in it for the long haul. I think that Virginia and Eric will stay together, but they will end up getting divorced within the year. I just think they're already having so many conflicts that they seem very bad at working out that I don't have a lot of hope for the longevity of their relationship. Clara and Ryan, I think they'll stay together, but I'm just not sure about where they'll end up. They seem quite different. It seems really important for him to raise his kids in the church, and for her, she seems a little bit against it. But I think even of all the couples, they seem to be the couple that's handling problems the most maturely and with the goal of finding common ground together. So I think that really goes far in a relationship. But I guess we'll see. What do I know? And that's everything for today. Usually I don't talk about reality TV. Usually I'm just kind of doing makeup or talking about indie releases, using what I have type of things. If you like this though, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And that's everything for today. Thanks for watching.